Jai Sri Radhe. Welcome to the Migratory Monk channel. In this episode, I am going to give you some very important informations regarding the national flag of India. I mean the Tiranga Jhanda. Please listen attentively. The supreme importance of history as the touchstone of a nation's entire elan and ethos may also be realized by analyzing how history helps in determining the validity and rationality of the national flag. At a time when the mushrooming of nations have debased the selection of a flag to the choosing of a mere distinctive rag, these rags have therefore become mere rabble raisers, emblems of factional strife, and rallying points for man killing man, or one enslaving another. But such was not the original idea. The first and only flag chosen to represent all mankind is the saffron colored flag of the Vedic culture. It represents the color of the blood that runs through everybody's veins and therefore represents the basic unity and brotherhood of humanity. The saffron color also represents the hue of the yearly morning sun which nourishes all humanity and heralds the starting of the working day of the mutual service. The almond colored Vedic flag also represents the hue of the setting sun, symbolic of a usefully spent day and heralding a period of well-deserved rest. The crimson Vedic flag also represents the flame of fire, which removes all impurities and reduces incurable things to ashes, and helps to cook nourishing food and imparts warmth. The orange Vedic flag also symbolizes the glowing color of sanguine hope and knowledge. The scarlet has been chosen by Vedic monks as their apparel because of the previous connotations of purity and selfless service associated with it. It is that flag which represents Hinduism. What better identification can one have to recognize that Hinduism and Vedic culture are convertible terms? The orange flag represents Hinduism not because it has been the standard of any conqueror, marauder, invader, or emperor, but because it represents the Vedic motto that humanity is all one, that the earth on which man lives is one, that the sky under which man lives is all one, that we must all coexist and one must live for others as a mother lives for her child, that mundane life is transitory, that sins of usurpation, aggression, and coercion are bound to be punished by the automatic laws of karma. In short, Hinduism is represented by the orange flag because that color signifies the ideals of purity, simplicity, altruistic service, humility, sacrifice, spirituality, and self immolation, which are the ideals of Hindu Vedic life and should be the ideals of every person. Modern India committed a great blunder under the guidance of the Gandhi Nehru combine in opting for a tricolor flag. The way it was chosen indicates that the persons responsible for choosing India's flag looked upon it merely as a national ragtag. This exposes their lack of grasp of history. Consequently, that choice also illustrates how persons who have been tutored in wrong history under alien rule are unable to take the right decision when saddled with sovereignty. Firstly, the tricolor flag was concocted by Madame Kama, a well-meaning Parsi lady in one of her ideal periods in far-away Berlin. All these were vitiating factors. A woman can never conceive a good, sound brainchild in a wrong environment. As a Parsi woman, Madame Kama was woefully deficient in robust Hindu thinking. That explains the pale, sickly, anemic, meaningless, non-representative white stripe which afflicts the very center of the so-called national flag. driving a permanent wedge between the Hindu saffron and the Muslim green colors. Again, if the white represents the minorities, it should obviously include the Muslims too, and obviate the necessity for any green stripe. Thus, suffering from a minority complex, Madame Kama naturally gave birth to a flag which led her to an undemocratic madness of permanently yoking the Hindu majority to the minority grind wheel. Ever since, the minority syndrome continues to cloud the thinking of all political leaders who have been governing the country. A majority of Hindu plumping a flag of freak conception of a minority woman is itself symptomatic of the effeminacy and dementation of Hindudom, entrusting its governmental authority to imbecile and inimical political prostitutes. When a woman of an infinitesimal minority reclining in a long dark cold night in faraway Berlin succumbs to a lusty patriotic emotion, unwedded to any logic and conceive a flag, what else could she deliver but a tricky tricolor? Thereafter, like Vasudev, who carried the newborn Krishna from conscious prison to freedom on his head in a basket across the flooded Yamuna river, the tricolor was smuggled into India across the stormy seven seas, past British guards, inside the head of some visiting Indian national congressman, to parade at the head of India's freedom struggle. But unlike Krishna, who was a legitimate divine miracle child, the Constituent Assembly itself, eyeing the tricolor as a freak offspring of illegitimate conception, resolved that it be replaced by Hindudom's sacred traditional saffron colored flag. But flouting their decision, again Gandhi Nehru combined schemed for the secret adoption of the tricolor itself, arguing that a mere heart transplant replacing the yarn spinning charkha at the center of the flag with the darn dodo of a spooked wheel would do the trick of imparting legitimacy to the tricolor as a national flag. But 75 years of experience of governance under that tragic tricolor of dubious mixed Hindu, Muslim and Parsi parentage and a contrived model nurture by a novice Gandhi Nehru male duo should convince every rational viewers and rational leader unchanged to any political dogma that the first basic step for improving India's administration, the caliber of its people, and the thinking of its policymakers should be to replace the tricolor with Bharata's and Hindudom's own age-old divine inspiring and pious orange color flag, placed to protect the defenseless and the righteous at any cost. Bharat can never prosper and progress under this evil tiranga or tricolor. Though the color stripes in the current flag have been chosen and positioned on communal considerations, yet officialdom has been taught to cover it up hypocritically with a facile and misleading explanation. In 1928, the flag had only two colors. The saffron color on top represented the Hindus and the green color in the lower part represented the Muslims. A charkha spinning wheel was stamped in the middle. The present flag is a derivative of that. And yet, suddenly, in a national self-deception, the Congress leaders have hoisted the myth that the saffron signifies courage and sacrifice, the white stands for peace and purity, and the green symbolizes fertility and productivity. Will the Congress leaders tell us which international dictionary or color sets out such attributes of different colors? Surprisingly, all the political prostitutes belong to different political parties have adopted the same stupidity and deception as gospel truth. It is such deceitful myths which have lulled Hindudom into cowardly compromise and insulatory inaction. Madam Kama cutting pieces from variegated lengths of cloth and stitching them together was also symptomatic of hodgepodge thinking. And actually today India under Congress and BJP leadership represents a stitched nation with the stitches coming up one after the other. Through riots, separatism like Khalistan movement or Northeast agitation etc. inspired by communities awkwardly passed on the Hindu code. The choice of saffron as the Hindu color was of course right, but giving it only one-third representation was gross injustice. This further highlights the minority syndrome in Madame Kama's brain. The tricolor made up of three parts of equal stripes of saffron, white and green is a democratic absurdity because it signifies that Hindus, Muslims and Christians etc. constitute more or less numerically equal parts of the country's population. That is not the case. Hindus are 80% approximately, while non-Hindus are only between 25 to 30%. The other arithmetical absurdity of the tricolor is that the 25% non-Hindus have been given two-thirds representations in the flag, while the 80% Hindu population has been given only one-third representation. Consequently, the Hindus, though in an overwhelming majority, have been reduced psychologically to a despicable minority in their own ancestral homeland. This is not a mere academic conclusion. These heady colorations actually colors all administrative thinking, since on every issue the political party caucus blatantly declare that it is committed to safeguard minority interest as against those of the majority. A practical illustration of it was provided by the holiday list drawn up by the Congress party in power in Delhi for 1983. There are three national days and all minority holidays were listed as compulsory, while Hindus were asked to fend for themselves. This is a graphic illustration of how Hindu politicians, particularly present ruling party BJP and their secondary organization RSS, namely Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangha, tutored in anti-national history with text approved and prescribed by alien powers, and also in addition their own characterlessness and hypocrisy have turned all norms of governance topsy-turvy by making the majority cater to the minority. Can proclaimed traitors behave worse than this? We should ask this question to ourselves. Another illustration of this syndrome is found in the fact that though the Taj Mahal has been clearly proved to be pre-Shah Jahan, yet all news medias and even academic institutions and other fraud and evil organizations like Isha Foundation, RSS, Arya Samaj keep their forums wide open, allowing even foreigners to deliver fanciful lectures repeating Shah Jahan's feigned authorship of the Taj Mahal, while completely shutting out the opposite discovery that Shah Jahan was not the builder of the Taj. All such models and topsy-turvy thinking is due to the coloring of the branch of ruling politicians by the dyes DYES used in the Tiranga flag. Another absurdity in the tricolor flag is the introduction of the white band. There was no minority who ever asked for it, nor is there any minority who will own that white band. Consequently, the white stripe is a meaningless, useless appendage and a dispensable burden. Yet another monstrous incongruity is the equating of the saffron and the green stripes. The tricolor not only injects a sense of rivalry in the Muslim jihadi mindset of being equal in number and weightage with the Hindus, but also further injects in them the wicked and evil ambition to further divide India and outstrip the Hindus. Psychologically and sentimentally too, that equation is wrong, because most Muslims vehemently assert that they are Afghans, Arabs, Turks or Iranians. That is to say, most Muslims regard themselves as everything but Indians. Though they are all convert Hindus, this is the tragedy. The tricolor also sets a dangerous precedent, namely, if at one time Bharat had unwise and characterless leaders who allowed two-thirds of the flag to be non-saffron, does it not stand to reason that at some future date there could be a similar imbecile Hindu neta, means political prostitute, which would very easily allow even the remaining one-third saffron to be striped off? Indulgence in such political striptease might one day embolden the Muslim jihadis to stripe Hindudom naked and turn it out of its own homeland. Several Indian political prostitutes, netas, in a fit of absent-mindedness, laud Hindu tolerance. Since that Hindu is represented only by the one-third saffron stripe in the flag, does it not mathematically follow that two-third intolerant Islamic jihadis represented in the tricolor will one day unceremoniously turn out the Hindus or pounce and convert them all? Is that what the Indian political prostitute netas want? In fact, this shows the dichotomy in their thinking and the wide chasm in the intentions and the result of their actions. Some years ago, a new political party was formed, namely Sanjay Vichar Manch, had adopted a flag which is half white and half green, with a saffron map of India sketched on it, only serves to highlight how the green syndrome continues to color the thinking of all political leaders. That is the lingering effect of 600 years of Muslim rule in India. It shows how history dies hard. So all this color business highlights a basic psychological flaw, namely that India's political prostitute rulers have lost sight of its basic father culture and become colorblind. Bharat must always remember that its culture and personality is Vedic and the color of Vedic culture is saffron alone. To adopt a flag which is two-thirds non-saffron amounts to saying that we have jettisoned two-thirds of Vedic culture. Then the next logical question will be, which two-thirds has been discarded? Bharat has to defend the totality of the Vedic culture and therefore her flag must remain totally saffron. Since one of the basic tenets of Vedic culture is freedom for different modalities of worship, a total saffron flag will alone ensure freedom of worship. The current two-third non-saffron flag will always involve a two-third element of coercion, which is dangerous for the so-called minorities themselves. The political parties mentioned earlier are ephemeral entities considering the permanence of Vedic culture and civilization. Yet, I have included them in this discussion only to illustrate to the viewers how a correct perspective of history even foretell the twists and turns that history will take in any given situation with mathematical accuracy. The laws of history are governed by cosmic mathematics. Therefore, history taught logically and rationally turns out to be the exact mathematical science. This should impress on political leaders that no amount of political tinkering with history can stripe the voice of history's eternal logic. The voice can always be made to come out loud and clear with a little effort when coercive political pressures are rejected. This analysis should also serve to highlight the fact that a real historian is a national thinker and planner and not a mere mercenary teacher of history, digger of broadsheets, translator of documents, or an underline and running dog of politicians. The various national, rational and mathematical considerations cited earlier indicate that random rag picking is not the right way of flag making. Hare Krishna, Jai Shri Radhe. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please like it and subscribe it.